Welcome to the webinar today. We are going over reductions and contractions in English pronunciation and fluency. So the biggest thing about pronunciation and fluency, and this is as I've taught English pronunciation and taught accent reduction or American accent training, whatever you want to call it, I've learned that there is a place for learning the correct sounds, making sure you have all of the correct sounds, but there needs to be a balance between using all of the correct sounds and understanding the rhythm that is in American English pronunciation. So when you go through the Pronunciation Pro course, we do both sounds of English, we work on both sounds of English and the rhythm of English. And the big thing about the rhythm of English is when you listen to American speakers, is that it's not all about saying every word correctly in your pronunciation. There are some very common reductions or common, another word for reduction would be common changes to the pronunciation of words that are common enough that are acceptable for any situation. Okay, so we're going to go over a lot of those reductions and make sure that you're aware of what's really common and what's not common to say, and what settings you would want to do some of these reductions and some that you would not want to do them. So we're going to go over those reductions and then contractions. I find that a lot of my students, they want to say instead of you're coming tonight, right? They want to say you are coming tonight, right? You are coming. And the problem with that is that it sounds very formal. And when you're not in a formal situation, then it can sound strange to a native English speaker. So contractions, and the reason my students don't use contractions is because they're not sure how to pronounce them. And so that's what I want to do today. I want to go through some of these contractions and make sure that you feel comfortable saying or pronouncing the contractions so that you can use them in conversation. Because in conversational English, it's much more common to use contractions than the full form. So we'll go through that. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. For those who are just joining us, be sure to write down any questions that you have in the questions box, and I'll stop halfway through the webinar after we speak about reductions. I'll stop and answer questions if there are any, and then we'll talk about contractions, and then there'll be a chance for question and answers at the end. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Just a little introduction here. That's me and my husband and my 3 little boys. So that picture was just taken a few weeks ago. But I am a certified speech-language pathologist. So what that means is that it just gives me a unique training and background to understand phonetics, understand sounds, and understand how to get you from your accent, the way you're speaking, and be able to change that into more of an American accent. And it has a lot to do with the sounds, like I was saying, the sounds of English and understanding the rhythm of English. So if you're going through the Pronunciation Pro course right now, you're learning both of those elements. And there's another fun little picture of my boys. All right, so let's get into reductions first. Okay, we'll go into reductions and contractions today. Okay, one thing I want to mention here, and I have water here I might be drinking every once in a while. Every once in a while. So one thing when we're talking about reductions is I want you to kind of think about it in terms of we don't walk around talking like this. We are not robots. We do not pronounce every single sound correctly, and we don't have spaces between words. Okay, so when I say that, it sounds a little bit robotic. If we don't have that some of those reductions and we don't have that connection between words, it can sound very stiff and robotic. So we wouldn't say, hello, how are you? Hello, how are you? A lot of times it's, hey, how are you? Or, hey, how you doing? Or, hey, how's it going? Okay, there's a lot of reductions or some, another word for reduction, you can kind of think of it as more casual talk that are very common and more appropriate in a lot of settings. So let's talk about kind of the way we hear English. So a lot of times through the course, what we're doing is we're first learning the sounds of English, and we're doing this by reading words, reading sentences, paragraphs. There's a lot of reading work that goes along with it, which is necessary. Excuse me. It's necessary for the point of, if you're not saying the sounds of English correctly, then there's going to be a lot of misunderstandings. Because if you're saying, bat instead of bad, you're not getting that D sound at the end of words, and you're just deleting it, then there's going to be confusion. Did you have a bat day? There's, did you say bat? Did you say, what exactly was that? So the pronunciation of sounds is very important, but it's almost like you have to zoom in. You're thinking of, zooming in on the sounds, and we have to really learn and practice and get that repetition on the sounds so that your mouth learns to use those correct sounds. But then we have to zoom out and listen to the overall rhythm. It's not, and think about it in terms of, don't think about how it's written, think about how it sounds. So I should have just did this without having it written there, but so when you're looking at the writing of this, you're saying, what are you doing? Okay, but what does it actually sound like when someone says it? What are you doing? What are you doing? What you doing? What you doing? That's a pretty common way of saying it. Hey, what you doing? Hey, how are you doing? And it doesn't sound, and depending on where you are in the United States, that's going to be different. Hey, y'all, how's it going? In the South, or there's different ways of saying it depending on the area, but you really have to take a step back and think, okay, what's the rhythm? How can I match the way that they are saying it so I don't sound stiff or I don't sound robotic? So if you think about it in terms of writing, what are you doing? What are you doing? This might be how it would be spelled. What are you doing? What are you doing? Or what you doing? What you doing? Okay, so there's a lot of different ways of saying that phrase that is more natural than what are you doing? Hi, what are you doing? Okay, I want to go. I want to go. I want to go. I want to go. Okay, I want to go. That's more. Hey, you want to come? Yeah, I want to go. Okay, so that's more common and more of just the conversation. Hey, do you want to go? That's not very commonly used. Are you coming? And don't worry about the specifics here. We're going to go through specific reductions in a minute. But I'm just wanting to give you an overall feeling for the way something might be spelled versus the way it is pronounced. So let's see. Oh, excuse me. Let me get back here. Are you coming? Okay. Are you coming versus are you coming? Are you coming? Hey, are you coming? Okay. And depending on your situation, it's obviously, sometimes it's going to be a little bit more reduced than others. Are you coming? Because that could be perfectly appropriate. Are you coming? Are you coming? Okay. I'm seeing if is everybody hearing me okay? I just want to make sure. I'm seeing a few things on next to you. So in the question box, if you can hear me okay, just write yes or I hear ya. or something so I can see. Okay. Okay, seems like the audio is working okay. All right, just wanted to make sure. Okay, let's get back in here. All right, so we've gone over some of these common reductions. If you're listening to, listening to native English speakers, you can kind of hear some of these reductions. I think it's important for you to really tune your ear to what is being said around you. How are your colleagues using reductions in the workplace? Are they using very formal English? Are they using more of these reductions or casual conversational speech? Think about what you're hearing and kind of tune your ear to what you're hearing and see if you're hearing some of these reductions. So let's go over some specifics here. The word of, okay, of. And if you actually think about it or listen to it, the word of is spelled off. Off. If you were looking at it phonetic, with the exact spelling, off would be the pronunciation, but we don't say off, we say of. So it's more UV, right? So some of, instead of some of, like a word of some of my friends, a lot of times it's some of my friends. Some of my friends are coming. Some of my friends are coming over. Let me have some of those papers, some of those. So you kind of have to see it, instead of seeing it word by word, you have to think of it as a whole phrase. What is the phrase that is being said? And I think of this in terms of, my kids. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and when I tell them the name of something, so there was a name of a game that we were playing the other day, and my 3-year-old can't read, so he doesn't have that phonetic understanding or that viewpoint to look at words from. What he's going off of is just how it sounds to him. So the name of the game was Spot It, okay? And spot it really would be pronounced spot it, right? Spot it. But instead of spot it, because he's not looking at the spelling of it, I just said it's called spot it. Spot it. Okay, so then what did he repeat? He repeated exactly the way I pronounced it. So that's really where native English accents come from, is as you're hearing things growing up, you're not hearing it based on the letter recognition of it or how it's spelled. You're just hearing it and pronouncing it the way it sounds. So it's very heavily auditorial, the way you're hearing and the way you're pronouncing words. That's what makes it so challenging as an adult learning the accent of a second language, is because we kind of come at it from spelling, from a more visual standpoint instead of auditorial. So you really have to kind of turn off that part of your brain that wants to kind of see it visually and step back and say, what am I hearing? What am I hearing, and can I match what I'm hearing? Okay, so most of, instead of, so of, right? We're going to say the of. I know most of you, I know most of you. I know most of you. So that's more the normal way of saying of, is that of, right? I know most of you. And then another way, so most of you, out of. So this one has that tap T rule. If you've gone through the second week of the program, you've learned about the tap T. When the T is surrounded by vowels, it becomes a D pronunciation. This happens all the time in English, and actually it's one thing that, even though it's a very minor thing, it's something that triggers that, oh, she's, they're not a native English speaker, because that T is, by native English speakers, it's very rarely pronounced. So out of versus out of. Get out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here. Hey, get out of here. Hey, you need to go. Get out of here. Okay, that's more of the way it's pronounced. Get out of here. All right, let's go into the next one. So number 2, and. This is frequently reduced to just the sound, okay? Salt and pepper. Salt and pepper. Salt and pepper. Black and white. Here and there. Here and there. All of these are more of the, instead of and, we don't just usually say salt and pepper. Salt and pepper, black and white. In conversation or in connected speech, salt and pepper. Salt and pepper. Or, okay, this one gets reduced frequently to okay? Instead of saying coffee or tea, do you want coffee or tea? Frequently, and listen to native English speakers and see if this is actually true. I guarantee it will be. But coffee or tea? Would you like coffee or tea? Coffee or tea? 4 is frequently reduced to fur, okay? Fur. Thanks for a great night. Thanks for a great night. Instead of thanks for a great night, thanks for a great night. Very, very commonly, thanks for a great night. Thanks for that. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Okay, thanks for a great night. Okay, let's go into another one. You, yeah. Okay, here, let's see. I know you don't like him. I know you don't like him. And this one is one that is actually not, it can go either way. Sometimes it's not as robotic or as uncommon to say, I know you don't like him. 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 That is it's common to say it that way, the reduced way, but it doesn't sound abnormal to say, I know you don't like him. I know you want to come versus I know you want to come. The ya is very, very reduced. And actually in different parts of the United States, the ya is going to be used a lot more than you, but I think that the you is it still is very appropriate. Okay, function words that start with H. You want to delete the H. Okay, so this one is an interesting one. So for he, him, and have, I know he doesn't like him. I know he doesn't like him. Okay, so there's the more common pronunciation of it. I know he doesn't like him. Do you notice that I'm not saying the H words in there? I know he doesn't like him. I know he doesn't like him. This again, so these two, the you and these function words, again, it doesn't sound abnormal to say the H sound. I know he doesn't like him, but just know with native English speakers, that's a tendency, is to delete that H in these function words. I know he doesn't like him. I know he doesn't like him. And actually, if you ask a native English speaker about this, it will actually be surprising to them that they don't pronounce the H. They'll probably think, oh, I never even thought about that I reduce that word or I don't say the H sound in those situations. I know he doesn't like him. Okay, so that's kind of more how people typically talk in more conversation situations. Here are very common ones. Going to, gonna. Going to, change to gonna. You're going to go. You're going to go versus you're gonna go. You're gonna go. And you have to really look at, and this is what I'm talking about as far as listening. I'm hoping that this lesson really brings your attention to these reductions and kind of gets you thinking about them and listening for them. And as I'm saying that, listening for them, I'm saying for instead of for. But listen for what is common in your setting. Whatever is the most common reductions, that's what you want to try and match. because that's what native English speakers are used to hearing. Really what it comes down to is that's what they're used to hearing. That's what's going to be comfortable and natural for them to hear and understand. So that's the kind of speech you're going to want to do. And in certain situations, like for me, going to want to do, that's what you're going to want to do. Okay, so I pronounce the whole going, right? But when I'm speaking with friends in situations, you're gonna go. Are you gonna go? Are you gonna come? It's very common to reduce that. All right, want to. Do you want to come? Do you want to come? Or I want to go. I want to go versus I want to go. I want to go. I want to do that. I want to I want an ice cream cone. I want to. So that's more want right? Want to. I want to go. Want to go. This does sound very robotic. Okay? I want to go. Versus I want to go or want to, yeah. It just is very common. I'm just kind of listening to myself and trying to think what sounds more robotic or more stiff and what is more comfortable. Have to. I have to is a very common reduction. I have to go. I'm sorry, I have to go. I have to go. I'm so sorry, but I have to go. Very, very common. Has to. He has to come. He has to. Right? He has to go. He has to go. I'm sorry. He has to go. Has to go. Has to go. So it's just, and reductions are more about what is easier for the lips. And it has become common because more people do these reductions. And that's what it comes down to. It's not proper English. It's not the perfect way to speak. But in certain situations, it is very appropriate and even more appropriate than saying the full term, just because, it doesn't, if it's more of a relaxed situation, then it's more appropriate to say it the more relaxed way. He has to go. Okay, here are just a few more. What do you, or typically, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? I see that's one of those instead of ya, so ya and you, it doesn't necessarily have to be changed, the you to ya. I go back and forth between you and ya sometimes. Probably more you than ya for me. But what do ya? What are you? What are ya? There's still that tap T there. So a T becomes a D when there's vowels around it. What ya? What are you? What are you? And when you see that T in the writing there, the T has an A on one side, but then it has a D on the other side, but with the reduction, it's more of an What do you want to do? Instead of what do, what do you want to do? Funny little things, just strange little nuances of American English and what native English speakers do. And you can decide for yourself whether you want to do these or not. But really what I want you to do is tune your ear to it, to hear those common reductions when you're listening to native English speakers. Kind of zoom out and listen for those. And see it more in terms of the rhythm and the music than what grammatically they're saying or what they're saying based on what it would look like. Can't you wait a minute? Can't you wait a minute is not very common, but can't you wait? Can't you do that? All right, I think we're coming down the end. Don't you say that. Don't you want to come? Don't you say that. Don't you? All right. Okay, so that is all for reductions. If I'll open it up for questions if there are any questions. And I'm not actually sure if are there some audio issues or technical issues there. I'm seeing some kind of alerts, like there might be some audio issues, but nobody's saying anything, so I'm not sure if that's just going off on its own. So anyway, if there's any questions about reductions, again, it's more, you can kind of pick and choose what you want to do, but the big thing is listen for the way English speakers say it, match the rhythm, try and match the way that they say it, some of the sounds that they're saying it, and less about how it's spelled when you're thinking more about the rhythm. All right, okay, I'm going to jump right into, I don't see any questions. And so I'm going to jump into contractions. Okay, contractions, like I was saying before about contractions, is that contractions in conversational English are critical. These are incredibly important to say the contracted form of speech instead of the full pronunciation. Contractions are very, very common for American English, and I want you to be able to do these contractions and know how to pronounce them, because I think that's the biggest trick, is that most non-native English speakers don't use contractions in their conversational English because they're just not sure how to pronounce it. Okay, so we're going to go through all these contractions, and I want you to be practicing with them. If you're in a situation where you can possibly say these things out loud, I would encourage you to do it. So that you can make sure that you can say it the way that it should be pronounced. So what I have here is I have the contraction on the left-hand side. The next column is the full form, so the way it would be written out. The third column is root and phonetics, so just kind of how I would spell it if I was using my phonetics symbols or phonetic spelling. And then homophones. What these are is occasionally there's a word that sounds exactly like the contracted form, or homophones are words that are spelled different but sound the same, really. So homophones, words that are pronounced the same but spelled different. So occasionally there's a homophone attached to a contraction, which helps to be able to hear, like, oh, those are pronounced the same way. Okay, now I know how to pronounce it. So it's just another way to help you learn the pronunciation of it. And actually, I have a worksheet, and if you email me at the end of this lesson or end of this webinar, and I'll give you my email address, but it's just Annie@pronunciationpro.com. I can send you a worksheet with this, and actually I'll probably, once I attach the recording for this webinar, I'll probably put it on the website, the worksheet on the website as well, so that you have this to practice. But the contraction, so let's start at the beginning and let's just go along. I want you to say it out loud if you're in a situation where you can. But the first one, look at the contraction, look at the full form, and then the either root and phonetics or homophone attached to it, and we'll go through it. So I'm, so the full form is I am, but it's just I'm, long I and then M, I'm. Next one, I'll. So I will is the full form, but the contraction is I'll. So if you look at the root and phonetics, there's kind of that invisible Y in there, because we have the U, right? I'll. And it's just like the word aisle. The homophone is aisle, like I'm walking down the aisle. The bride is walking down the aisle, or the path. Same pronunciation. I'd, I would. So long I and then D, I'd. So like the Ides of March is the homophone of it. So I'd. I've, long I and V, I have. I've, long I. Your. So you are is the full form. Your, so it's just kind of like that OR, R vowel, your. And it's the same pronunciation as your, like your, this is your phone, this is your phone. You're coming, you're invited, right? You are invited, you're invited. You'll, you will. And it's just like Yule, like the Yuletide gathering or Yuletide carol is the homophone, Yule. So you will, you'll. You'd, you would, you'd like to come, right? You'd like to come. Next one, you have. So you've got a lot of nerve, right? You've got a lot of nerve. You have. You've got my phone. Next one, he is. He's coming tonight. He's my best friend. He's my best friend. Heal. So this one can be heal, or hill. So when it's more in conversational English, excuse me, my throat's getting dry. Heal. So in more conversational English, it's probably hill, more like hill. He'll be coming tonight, right? He'll bring the hot dogs. He'll bring the hot dogs. He'll. He'd, you got to make sure you get that in hill. It can be kind of more of that short I, but in he'd, you need that long E sound. So he would, he'd like to come. He'd like to come. You have to get that long E in there. He'd. She is. So it's more of that Z ending. She's my best friend. She's my best friend. She will is she'll be coming tonight. She'll bring the chips. She'd. So again, same as he'll and he'd. This one, she'll and she'd. You have to get that that E pronunciation. She'd. All right, so hopefully you're with me here and you're pronouncing it along with me. It gets a little kind of boring because it's just going through the repetition, but it's incredibly important to get these correct. Make sure you're getting the correct pronunciation and that you feel comfortable using that contracted form, because it's a lot more common in conversational English. And even if you listen for native English speakers, you can hear that they use contractions all the time. All right, so the contracted form, it is, it's time to go. It'll, it will, it'll. Do you hear that D in there? It's because the T is surrounded by vowels. It'll be nice to see you tonight. It'll be really warm, so bring a jacket. It'd. This is a funny one. It would. It'd be nice. It would be nice. And actually, this is not a very frequent contraction that's used in conversational English. So I wouldn't spend too much time on it. But just so you know, it would be it'd. It'd be nice. It would. We're going. We're out of here. We're. So long E there. We're. We will. And really what, you can do that long E, will be coming, but just like heal, it's in conversational English, when it's sped up, it probably is more, it's more like will be coming. We'll get the bags. We'll fill up the car with gas. Will. We'd. We would. Let's see. What's a sentence? We'd be glad to bring something. We'd be silly not to. All right, weed. Same word as like the weed that you pick in the garden. You're going to pull the weeds, right? Weed. Weave. Weave is the we have, and it's the same as weave a basket. So I'm going to weave a basket. We've been waiting for a long time for this. We've been waiting for this vacation for a while. There is the same. They are, so is going to be the same pronunciation as over there. Over there. So they're going to come. They're my cousins. They're my cousins. There. They'll. They will. They'll. They'll. Okay, so it's they, the whole pronunciation of they, and then that dark L. They'll. They'll. They'd. 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 So we're going to get that long A. So they, and then just the D at the end. So all of these they contractions, there, they'll, you say the full they and then put the ending on it. There, they'll, they'd, they've. Okay, so they've is just that V at the end. They've got a lot of food. They've got a lot of food. A lot of food. Theirs. Same thing with their. So anytime there's a contraction with their, you're going to say the whole there. They and their. There is, so there's my phone. There's the wall. There's my house. There'll. This is not a very common contraction. So there will be lots of food there. There'll. But that's how it's pronounced. There'll. So there's kind of an R in there. There'll be a lot. There'd. Not a common contraction, but it is possible. So there would be there'd. That is, right? That's a very common contraction. That's a very common contraction. So full that pronunciation, and all of these, they, there, that, full pronunciation of the first word, and then just that ending. That's, that'll. So that T becomes a D, right? Tap T rule. That'll be all. That'll be nice. That'll help him feel better. That'd. This one's not very common, but that would be nice. That'd be nice. That'd be nice. That'd be nice. That'd. So that T becomes a D, right? With that'd and that'll. You gotta get that D pronunciation. That'll be nice. No, we don't use that as a contraction. That'll be nice. That'd be nice. No, that's incorrect. You have to change it to a D or it's not right. All right, whose. So these are question contraction. Who is, whose. So homophone is whose, who is, and whose is this. Whose, who'll. You have to kind of get that who'll. And there's almost like another W in there. Who'll. Who are you talking about? Who are you talking about? Who are you talking about? Who'd, who would who'd say that? Who'd even say that? Okay, what's, what is, what's your favorite name? What's your favorite color? What's the capital of Minnesota? Okay, very common. What'll, what will, what'll be what'll be for dinner? What'll be for dinner? What are you going to do? What are. So that T becomes a D, right? What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Wears, where is, wears, like he wears, it's a homophone of wears, like he wears a coat. And where's the bathroom? Where's the bathroom? Where is the bathroom? Where's the bathroom? Where'll, okay, where'll, where'll, where'll we go after dinner? Where'll we go after dinner? Where'll. Okay, a couple more on this page. Where'er. This one's a funny one. Okay, where'er. Where'er. Where are you going? Where are you going? If you slow it down, it seems very uncomfortable, but once you speed it up, where'er. Where are you going? Where are you going? It's getting your mouth to move that fast. And this is, I'm going through these quickly, and I hope you don't mind, but because it would take us so long. But but these, if you're not able to get your mouth to match what I'm doing yet, you just have to do it over and over again. Okay, your mouth might not want to move as quickly through the sounds as what I'm wanting you to do and what I'm doing. But that just takes repetition. You have to do it several times until your mouth gets loosened up and is saying, okay, I'll do that for you. Okay, where are you going? Where are you going? And put it into a sentence to make it a little bit more comfortable and more natural. Where'd you like to go? Where would you like to go? Where would you like to go? Where'd. Okay, let's see. So let's keep going. When's a good time to call? When'll, right? Whenever there's that L at the end, when'll, dark L. When'll be a good time to call? Winner. Kind of sounds like winner, but with a short eh. When are you coming? When are you coming? Wise. Why is that a good, or wise? I have that wrong. It should be why is instead of why are. Typo on my part. Okay, why is the full form. Wise. He's very wise is the homophone. Wise and smart. Wise. Why is this hard for us? I don't know. While. Same pronunciation as while. We'll be back in a while, right? We'll be back in a while. Why will is the full form. Why will. What's a sentence with why will? While there aren't very many sentences with why will. Maybe you can think of one. Okay, wire. Why are you going? Wire. So the homophone here is like a thin wire. Why are you here? Why are you doing that? Wide. Homophone is wide, like not narrow, but wide. So why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? House. So it's very similar to house, except it has a Z at the end, so it's not a perfect match. How's the trip going? How's your friend? How's your girlfriend? Howl. Same pronunciation as the coyote is howling. Howl. How will we do this? How will we make the craft? Howl. How will we build this house? Howl. And those are, the W and the L combination, those are tricky sounds for non-native English speakers. It's tricky for native English speakers. When you combine R's and L's and W's, and especially N sounds too, it gets tricky. It gets hard for the mouth to move in those ways. So if you're finding that that's a difficult one, you're not alone. The dark L lesson goes over that ol pronunciation, and I think that's in week 3. So it takes some practice to kind of get those muscles in your mouth moving in the right way and getting it into position. All right, hower. How are you doing? How are we going to get there? Hower. Kind of like tower, but with an H. Hower. Hower. And how'd. How'd you like to come? How'd you like to come? This is more of like in the South in Texas. How'd you like to come? You know, I feel like I need to do a Southern accent. How'd you like to come here? How'd. Okay, how'd you, I don't know how to say it without a Texas accent. Okay, I think we're coming. So here are the negative contractions. So these are actually very important because these happen all the time, and it's important to get the contraction form of it. So can't, and a lot of these might sound very normal, or you might already be natural with them because they're so common. You might have had a lot of practice with it already. But can't, cannot, I can't come. And a big one for this, and you learn about this, I think in week 1, where we talk about, no, it's not week 1. I think when we talk about word stress, now I'm forgetting, but we talk about can and can't and the difference between understanding can and can't. And the difference here, you want to make sure that you always stress negative words. So all of these words, all of these contractions, whenever they come up in conversation, they get the stress. So you want to stress those words, emphasize those words so that they stand out above the rest. That will help so much in how others understand you when you stress those negative words. I can't stress that more because it's very, very important. It helps a lot of misunderstandings because I can't go sounds a lot like I can go. Okay, so if you say I can't go, it makes it so much more clear versus I can go. Can is typically not stressed, and so if you don't stress that, then it sounds like can. All right, couldn't. If you look at the root and phonetics form of it, couldn't. I couldn't come. I couldn't get there on time. Next one, didn't. Did not. I didn't. Didn't. Okay, look at the root and phonetics on these. I think that's a helpful way of looking at it. Didn't. Doesn't. Does not. He does not want to come. He doesn't. Don't is do not, so it's don't. Long O in there. Don't tell me that I can't come. Don't tell me that I can't come, right? Don't. Don't tell me that I'm saying it incorrectly. Hadn't, okay? Hadn't, had not, hadn't. Same as doesn't, didn't, couldn't. When these, with the not attached to it, you really just get that int at the end. Hasn't, same thing, hasn't. Isn't. He isn't going to come. Okay, and hopefully those negative contractions are very comfortable for you. If not, really look at those root and phonetics and go through and practice those. Again, send me your email or send me an email just saying I want the contractions worksheet, and I'll send this to you for practice. Otherwise, in the next few days, I'll have it up on the webinars attached to this webinar recording. Oh, we have more. Oh, okay, there's just one. Hold on. One more. Still negative contraction. So mustn't, I mustn't, I must not, I must not be hearing that right. You know what? Mustn't is not a very common contraction. Needn't is not either. So I'm not going to make you, but that's the pronunciation of it. Mustn't, same thing with what we were doing before. Mustn't, needn't, shouldn't. I shouldn't do that. This is a very common one. So shouldn't, wasn't, weren't. I'm going through those a little bit faster now because of time, and we've been doing this for a long time. So won't. He won't be coming. Wouldn't, would not. I wouldn't be here without you. I wouldn't have made it without your help. Okay, very, very common. Oh, we did it. Congratulations. Hopefully you were saying those along with me. That was a big list of words, but contractions are one of those things that are very, very common. And I see it over and over again with my clients, is that they always say the full form. Even when we're reading contractions, they'll say, they'll come across a word that says, I don't want to come. They'll say, I do not. And that's something that I think that as you're getting more fluent in English, that's something that you really need to work on, is getting those contractions, because it does sound I guess the feeling that it brings when you pronounce the full pronunciation of it instead of the contracted form is just that you sound more proper in your speech, and therefore it portrays more of like, oh, they might not be very easy to talk to or relaxed, or they might just be very rigid kind of personality, or it helps people feel a little bit more comfortable around you. And that's a funny thing to think about in terms of something as silly as contractions, but when you can use contractions in conversation, it softens your manner of speech. It softens the way that you speak, and it helps you sound more relaxed. It helps you sound more approachable, which is a good thing. It's people want to feel comfortable around you, and you want people to feel comfortable around you. And I think this is an easy way to do, or not easy, it's difficult. I understand that it's very difficult. But I think I know that it makes a big difference socially and in situations to have this more relaxed manner of speech. All right, so just a reminder, it's step by step. Don't think, okay, I've got to master this week. This is step by step. It's a lifelong learning process. Learning correct pronunciation, learning how to speak English fluidly and confidently and with correct pronunciation and the correct rhythm of English. It really is going to come step by step. And the more that you take that approach, the more successful you will be, because through the 12-week course, you'll really gain the tools and the understanding and really make significant progress during that 12 weeks. But I don't want that to be the end. I don't want that to be where you say, oh, okay, I've gotten through my 12-week program and now I can just sit back and now I sound, absolutely perfect. And it's just like learning, just like your English is always improving. You're learning new vocabulary. You're learning, more natural ways of saying things. Same thing with your pronunciation. So take that approach, learn piece by piece, and you're doing that by coming to this webinar, because these webinars really kind of teach what the extras in pronunciation, the extras that will make the difference over the long run. All right, so great job today, and I'm glad you're here. I'm going to open it up for questions here in a minute. If you have any questions, thank you so much for coming, but if you have any questions and that you want to ask privately, go ahead and email me, Annie@pronunciationpro.com. I'm glad to answer them, and I'm always available through email. And if you want to call, just leave a message and I'll call you back. But email is usually the best way. Even if you want to set up an appointment, a free consultation or something, email is the best way to get a hold of me. All right, and just to kind of review our packages, I know that a lot of you are in the Plus package or the Basic or the Premier, and so a lot of different varieties. If you are in the Basic package, the monthly membership package, you get the online training plus these webinars. And if you're interested in getting more personalized feedback, take a look at the Plus or the Premier packages. There's the students that I work with personally through these two different packages. I've just been so impressed with their progress, how well they're doing, and what they're they're able to accomplish. Obviously, I've actually gotten a lot of feedback from my basic package members that they have enjoyed the course and they've learned a lot and they've made a lot of progress. But because I don't have that personal interaction with them as much, I can't see it as directly as I can with the Plus and Premier package students. So go ahead and take a look at those if you're interested. If not, continue to come to these webinars, and it can be very helpful as you continue to learn through the 12-week program. All right, so I'm going to open up for questions if anybody's interested in asking questions or getting a little bit of feedback about their program or anything. I'll stick around here for a few minutes. But thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you being here. I'm impressed. I'm incredibly impressed with you for being here. I think that I'm always just in awe of my students and the way that they are just always continuing to learn, continuing to push themselves. There's a lot of initiative and just I have a lot of respect for you as you continue to work and improve and better yourself, and continuing to refine and perfect your English pronunciation and fluency is a great way to do that. And it makes a huge difference in your life and career, both socially and and in your career. So thank you for being here, and I'll stay for questions.